Bonsoir, Paris presse printemps. Bonsoir, Paris presse printemps. Voici monsieur. Voici monsieur, merci monsieur.
You could call it an international story in a way, but it really started back home with 3 young Canadians about 2 years ago. Stan Hegstrom had a job of sorts out in Nanaimo, BC. He wanted adventure. Andre Duquois had lived all his life in Montreal, Quebec. He wanted to travel. Bob McKenzie had just graduated from high school on Cape Breton. He wanted a profession. This is how they found themselves one sunny morning, all headed in the same direction. They come from all parts of Canada, these Aircrew candidates. Cities, farms, coastal ports. But the background doesn't make any difference. Farmhand, clerk, or college grad, they all get the same start at Personnel Selection Unit.
For many of you, this is the first step in a career which will take you on to further training and eventually to operational squadrons of the RCAF. During this selection period, however, you will remain civilians. At the end of the selection period, if successful, you will be enrolled as flight cadets in the particular aircrew category for which you are best suited.
Pilot or observer? Which would it be? That was the big question in all our minds. That, and for some of us, the worry that maybe we wouldn't make it at all.
Don't let these tests frighten you too much. Remember, the RCAF is not looking for supermen, just healthy, alert people that other members of aircrew can depend upon. Now, are there any questions?
Well, suppose you don't make it. Can you leave the same day?
Yes, you have your interview in the morning, and the reasons for not being selected are fully explained to you. You can leave the same afternoon if you wish. That's all then. Crew, attain ho! Carry on, Farley. Dismiss.
Surprising how fast that first day feeling wears off. You wander into the lounge, look around, and first thing you know, you're meeting people from all over the country.
John Kowalczyk, Sand Lake, Manitoba.
Keith McPherson.
Calgary.
John Trousdale, Charlottetown. Paul Bolton, Corner Brook, Newfoundland.
Everybody talking about the same thing, flying.
Pilot? Oh, brother, you sure got a hope. Do you think they'd trust a shorty like you with one of those jets? You'll never fly one in 100 years.
Okay, so I take observer.
And fiddle around with a bunch of maps on a desk. Not me. Pilot or nothing.
Yes, you meet all kinds at Selection Unit, and some of them have mighty big ideas. Maybe they can back them up. Maybe they can't.
What do you say we let the Air Force decide?
Medical tests, written tests, obstacle courses. Seems like just a crazy mixed-up circus at first. But then you begin to see the method behind it. They're finding out your powers of leadership, or lack of it. initiative, how much coordination you'll have in the air. They all add up to the rating you'll get on final selection day.
Mr. Ekstrom. Oh, right in here, please.
Nervous? You bet you are. Your mind's racing back over every test, and you feel you're sitting on barbed wire waiting for that final decision. What'll it be? Are you in or out? And then suddenly it's all over. The officer is saying, congratulations, you've been accepted. They aren't all that lucky.
You see, all aircrew trades are highly specialized. You needn't think any less of yourself for not being selected. Many people not suitable for aircrew are highly successful in equally specialized civilian jobs, just as many a good pilot might not be suitable as a surgeon or an architect.
Well, I wanted to try it. Now I have. I still think it's been an interesting experience.
I wish you every success. Good luck, Mr. Dawson.
Thanks very much, sir.
Yes, it's tough to be turned down, to see others going on without you. But like every other experience in life, a lot depends on how you take it. There's always some fellow who just can't.
Wrap it up. You'd think you guys just won a sweepstake or something.
What's wrong with you, friend? Sour grapes?
For some people, it's always the other fellow's fault.
Left, right, left. Left, right, left. Left, right, left. Mike! Halt!
For most of the boys, it was over the first hurdle and on to pre-flight officers' school.
Right! About turn! By the left! Quick! Mark!
This is where you learn leadership is more than just giving orders or taking them. It means learning to work together, exploring new fields like organization, world affairs, and the qualities that make a leader.
Nobody becomes an officer in a few short weeks at school. Here, we can only introduce you to Air Force life and give you some of the basic principles. For each of you, your development as officers is a personal matter. It is something you'll have to work at all during your flying training and continue even after you finish your operational training and are posted to a squadron.
That's one thing you learn in officers' school. You burn plenty of midnight oil before you start burning gasoline in the RCAF. Sometimes maybe you think ahead to flying training school. And if your name happens to be Stan Hegstrom, you worry about how you'll do.
An aircraft is no better than the men who fly it. And our job is to teach you to fly in a professional, military, and safe manner. Most of you, naturally enough, want to get into the air the very first day. Well, that sort of thing only happens in movies. Before you whiz off into the blue out yonder, you have to know your aircraft, the elements it moves in, and the laws and rules governing its flight. These subjects will form the main body of your work in ground school.
There are four forces operating on an aircraft in flight: lift, drag, weight, and thrust. Lift and weight cross-section through an active warm front.
Note the cumulonimbus cloud embedded in the main cloud deck, and the heavy precipitation falling from the cloud in the overrunning
Ever wonder what raises the wheels on a modern plane? Why your navigation lights blink automatically? What moves the flaps, trim tabs, cooling gills? That's what you start to learn now, and at first hand.
Step forward in the rear cockpit switch and try them. They work by rheostat controls also, and vary the intensity.
landing lights, flight instruments, ancillary controls for airframe and engine. You begin to see why a pilot does a lot of his training on the ground. And just when you're beginning to catch on, there's your aircraft, stub-winged, sturdy, ready for the air at 0800. Cuts through sky like a knife through water. Look her over and climb aboard. This is your basic service trainer. Call her AT6 or Canadian Harvard. Taxi out to the takeoff button. Lift her into the solid air. First time you try it, the plane flies you. Takes a while to settle back and relax. That's better. Level her out and try again. A new world, a new experience. You learn a lot up there on that first lesson, even if it's just how much you don't know.
Actually, you did a pretty good trip today. Any type of learning is hard. Walking, riding a bike, learning how to fly. You must remember you can only learn one thing at a time.
So Stan Hegstrom got down to the business of flying. Half days in ground school, the other half in the flights. Marking up the hours, working toward the morning when you turn in on your approach, and there's nobody up there but you.
Oops, easy on that turn.
I bet he's lonesome.
Mister, that's one bet Jack'll win. There's nothing so empty as that back seat when you're coming in for your first solo landing.
Look, Ma, I can fly.
Come on, let's get back.
Hey, where the citizens
Hey,
go?
Dixon, get the fire extinguisher. All right, come on. Here he comes.
Yes, sir?
Get out there and start up 551.
Right away, sir. I'll mark up your time.
Funny how hard flying seems at first. Then gradually, as you catch on, you find knobs and levers without even looking. Hydraulics, trim, mixture, pitch, flaps. At 50 hours, you wonder what took you so long.
Solo cross countries. Smith and Craig this PM. Remainder completed. We can put up Smith and Craig for their final nav tomorrow. Instrument flying. Hours required 45 per student. Completed. Blink trainer 20 hours. That's complete except for Johnson. He needs 1 hour. Aerobatics.
Those are up at 160. Check and over. Easy on the rudder. Slide her back into straight and level.
Final air tests. Complete. Formation should be finished today. Night flying. Complete. Check. That's it.
What about ground school?
EIS will have the results up tomorrow.
That's fine.
You're in, boy. Yahoo!
flight cadets of Course 55. Tonight, they're singing under the crests of courses who went before. Tomorrow, they'll be flying officers on their way to a new day at Advanced Flying School.
Glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah. As we go flying on.
Tag along with the boys of Course 55 and you'll find yourself at Gimli, Manitoba on T-33 Silver Stars. Only this time you don't expect to get airborne the day you arrive. Flying's your business now, and that's just the way it's handled. One sure step at a time. First, you check out on the new type. Engine, airframe, canopy and seat jettison, oxygen for pressure breathing at 40,000 feet. These aren't just ground school chores, they're flight insurance. A dozen carefully engineered devices that give a jet pilot confidence in the plane he flies. Now you can start looking ahead to the day you'll be operational, a jet pilot ready for service anywhere.
Now, you're all familiar with the organization of the transatlantic ferry route. We've had our Met and navigation briefings. Our flight time on the first leg from St. Hubert's to Goose Bay is 1 hour and 32 minutes. On arrival, if the weather is good over Greenland, we'll have a 3-hour turnaround at Goose Bay. I want the first section of 4 aircraft off the ground at 09:30. So you better get out the aircraft right away. Have a good trip.
Ron Poole, Bill Bain, and Bill McKay. They're manning their planes for an airlift overseas. Gord Brown of Princeton, B.C., John Gaudry of Chicoutimi, and Jerry Tobin of Grand Falls, Newfoundland. Hallowell, Fitzgerald, Livingston, and Ayers. And Stan Hegstrom of Nanaimo, who didn't think he could fly.
Zweibrücken, North Luffinham, Grotonkin. Montreal to the Far East via Hawaii. Training trips to Britain, to Paris, France, and back through the Azores. These are typical training flights made by the Observer Navigation. There's not much doubt in anybody's mind today about the importance of navigation. Bigger and faster aircraft, longer range and more complex equipment, have made the role of the observer one of the most important in the RCAF.
Well, he didn't have to convince Andre Duquois. This was his big ambition, and he went to work like a beaver right from the first class.
Now, in this conic type projection, you'll notice that we put the cone over the North Pole, and with the light source at the center of the Earth, project the graticule of the Earth up and onto this cone. I'll show you on the board here.
It's a new way of looking at the world, seeing it through an Air Force observer's eyes. Mercators, topographicals, polar conics, a preview of the geography that next week will unroll under your wings. You learn all the map types, and you learn how they're made. You learn to solve navigational problems by using any one of them.
Your wind is 090 at 32 knots, track 180 degrees true, airspeed 160 knots. Find your heading and ETA.
Variation, deviation. What's the difference in lapsed time if you increase ground speed 10 knots? Prickly questions sometimes, even with a navigation computer to help you. A job that calls for precision work all the way, because only the right answer will bring you home to base.
169 degrees, 1417, sir.
That's right.
There was just one thing you could say about Duquois. He was good, and he knew it. That first trip out of Winnipeg, most students are mighty glad they're flying with an experienced instructor. But Duquois just sailed along, the only man in the class who could keep an air plot and still find time to read letters from his girl. Winnipeg, Regina, Portage la Prairie. Instructors know this country like the back of their hand, but mostly they let you work out your own problems in the air. You learn this job by experience. If you're first navigator, it's your trip all the way, with a turning point maybe 200 miles from home. Okay, observer, what's our heading and ETA for base? Check the air plot. What's our wind and drift? It's a long way home, and you're the man with the answers. Sure of it? Sure you're sure. That's one thing about being an observer. Pilots don't tell you where to fly. You tell them. Estimated time of arrival at Winnipeg? 16:23. Turn over the runways, and there's the wrong airport. Just a slight mistake of, say, 100 miles. Basic training, 22 weeks. Then you're ready to specialize. For some, air interception on Mitchells. For others, sextants and sunshots. 12 weeks as a specialist in long-range navigation. Like pilots, the observers put in a lot of practice on synthetic trips. Ground exercises that duplicate flight conditions and help you solve problems you'll meet later in the air. This is where you learn to eliminate those mistakes an observer just can't afford to make. Start off with a team of 2. Opposite you, your partner passes you information for the trip. Your job is to navigate, working against the clock, and bring the aircraft safely back to base.
1300 Zebra, set course 094 degrees true for Lakehead. Variation 12 west.
Today, you're in the synthetics room, but airborne, the other half of your course spans out across the country from Winnipeg's Air Navigation School. Danish, Italian, Netherlands, and French. From the countries of the first sea navigators to discover America, they have come to train with the RCAF to navigate by air.
Navigator to pilot. 52 degrees, 35 minutes.
No, it wasn't the easiest job in the world, but Andre Duquois had a date with Marie on graduation day. So he sweated it out in synthetics, in lectures, and analyses. Day trips under the prairie sun, and the cool night trips where you learn to navigate by the stars. This is your office, navigator. Study the line of your track made good. Sextant and air plot for your tools. Turn on the tide of the night's Mercator. Arc through sky on a midnight highway, star-fixed, firm on solid air, under the stride of your wide dividers, prairie and lakeland. You'll get there. By sextant sight and radio compass, slick as the tick and tock of time, and Venus and Betelgeuse for your markers, orbit over your aerodrome. busy moments and dull ones, night flights and the chores of the synthetic exercise. But when it's all over and you're a full-fledged observer, you know you've come a long way. Graduation, good music, and a girl in your arms. And if she's a girl like Marie, what's the point in being an observer if you can't take her out in the moonlight and show her the stars? But that's another story. Pick any sunny summer afternoon. Climb off the bus and walk into your new quarters at Station Winnipeg. Chapter 1 in the story of an RCAF radio observer. For Bob Mackenzie, it was the same as for 100 other fellows. Well, the same, that is, except for one thing.
3 CDG. I'm Henry. That's my QSL.
Bob Mackenzie, Glacier Bay.
Hey, isn't this great? I hear they got a half-gallon transmitter here with a wide-space 10/20 rotary beam.
A hot rod, a radio ham. One of those guys with beams and transmitters on the brain.
Well, excuse me, Bob. I think I'll go down and see what kind of a rig they've got here.
36 men on the course, and you have to get him for a roommate.
Gentlemen, in 1951, this school became the first in history to devote itself to training radio technicians for air work as commissioned officers. As electronics became more important to flying and communications, the work of these officers became more important to the RCAF. Today, our graduates must go out trained both as skilled technicians and as Air Force officers. It's no snap, believe me, either for us or for you. Like piloting or navigating a plane, the course in air radio work is a pretty concentrated business. The course itself has 3 main objectives. First,
Seems confusing sometimes, that first week at the radio school. But it's not so different from the other trades. As you move into practical work, you begin to see the importance of the job. Intercom, RT and WT, a network of communications on the ground and in the air.
Because of skip effect, a signal from Sydney, Australia, instead of moving off into space...
After a while, you even understand the radio hams. But no matter how interesting ground subjects are, there's one thing you've all been waiting for. They call this a flying classroom, and that's just what it is. An airborne class where you learn your job at first hand on operational equipment. Later, you'll do a final test here, too, 8,000 feet above the ground.
Sports afternoon Wednesday, starting at 1400 hours. Dinghy drill has been arranged for tomorrow morning. Flight Cadet James will chair the current affairs in the evening, and we're having a course leaders meeting Thursday at 1730 hours. Oh, by the way, Flight Cadet McDonald has been appointed president of the mess committee. I guess that's about it.
What about the charge against Davis?
Oh, that's at 1500 hours today. I've got the paperwork right here.
Good. Tell the Edge I'll be back, about 1400.
Right.
You learned a lot about running your own show as an observer flight cadet. Matter of fact, whatever trade you're in, there's always work to be done in the Flight Cadets organization. As Flight Cadet Officer Commanding, you issue routine orders, administer discipline, and take over parades. By the time you've graduated and take your place on a station, these duties are routine.
By the right, quick, march!
Hey, listen to this. You landlubbers don't even know you're living. I'm just back from anti-submarine school, Londonderry, Ireland, and operating out of Halifax with Maritime Command. 2 trips to Bermuda and the Azores already. And it looks like we're scheduled for some co-op work with the U.S. Navy. Yours for an observer's life over the ocean waves. Bill. P.S. What's holding you guys back? That's what I'd like to know. What's holding us back?
Well, for one thing, chum, exams.
Thought I should tell you, Henry, that your marks on the midterm exams were the best on the course, and your rating as an officer was positively the worst. An observer is more than a radio expert in uniform. He is also an RCAF officer in dress, in deportment, and in the qualities of leadership he displays both on duty and off. Right now, there is serious doubt as to whether you should graduate. If you want to wear RCAF wings, you'd better make some serious changes, and fast. That's all.
What are the qualities of an Air Force officer anyway? Bookwork, technical knowledge, or a drill sergeant's bearing and a sharp parade square salute? Well, whatever they were, Darcy Henry was determined to find out. It was a new era for the old easygoing radio ham. Drill, Air Force law, leadership. He gulped them down till he practically had indigestion. He had exactly 3 weeks to do it in. I guess it was a new era for all of us. When you step up to get your wings on graduation parade, somehow you see things in a different perspective. You know now that an Air Force officer is a lot of things. Qualities that aren't always on the surface, but qualities that in the long run you can't do without. Behind the drums and ceremonial are the DF loops and the LORAN, the transmitters and receivers, men and equipment linking ground stations and planes from coast to coast. That's when you start to understand what it means to be an RCAF observer.
area extends over northeastern Manitoba and Hudson's Bay and is moving southeast. However, it is expected to be clear of your route by 1500 hours. Somewhere in the North Bay area, jets from number 3 OTU will do a practice interception on your aircraft. This will not affect your course for ETA. I don't have to remind you that these operational training flights are important. In a few weeks, you will be going to squadrons where lives and valuable equipment will be in your care. Don't forget to keep your pilots informed of weather along the route, at destination, at alternates. Advise the pilots when taking astro shots and give revised ETAs where necessary. Okay, takeoff is at 1100 hours. Let's go.
At Trenton, Ontario, as the crews go out to their planes, the weather is unlimited. But not Corporal Peters. He's clouded over. He's a good crewman, Peters, except for one thing. He's still dreaming of the good old days gone by. All these downy-faced new guys just out of school, inexperienced sprogs. Swing north and west. At a North Bay aerodrome, the fighter crews are going out to their planes. All-weather CF-100s scrambling for a practice interception on North Stars. Follow the pilot through his tarmac check. Climb into the observer's cockpit and go over his equipment. Radar gear that will track their target through cloud or weather and bring them into range. Estimating interception in 7 minutes. Well, it was all old stuff to Corporal Peters. He decided to read a magazine till the weather got better. Only it didn't. By 1300 hours, they were into a fully developed storm. When they contacted Churchill, it was
Negative 502. Terminal weather for Churchill. Precipitation ceiling 100 feet. Sky obscured. Visibility 0 in heavy rain. Wind 250. Indicates worsening conditions.
At 1430 hours on instruments, they set course for base by dead reckoning. Navigator Duquois was thinking it was too bad they couldn't climb through the ice. Mackenzie at the radio was thinking he better get some bearings or else. Corporal Peters was thinking of his wife and kids. This is your problem, Sparks in Air, where the radio highway dwindles down and the whispering signal disappears in the sullen, storm-black, cloud-blind sky. Match your wits with the thunder's rumble. Ride your luck through the lightning's glare. Reach for Earth with a thread of sound lost in the spaces somewhere under. By DF loop and radio bearing, wireless pinpoints out of the sky. Voices, signals. Your radio homing will bring them back to the aerodrome.
bearing 075 true. Capaskasing, bearing 007 true. Fix, 51 degrees north, 83 degrees 50 minutes west.
Same plane, same field, same crew. But a few changes in crewman Corporal Peters.
I'll get that. Thank you. Go ahead.
After you, sir.
Three men, each with his own personality and ambitions, but all with something in common. 3 men or 3,000, the story remains the same. A story that goes on today and tomorrow off the runways of a dozen countries. At Winnipeg, air crews board their planes for a flight to the Maritimes. At North Bay, all-weather CF-100s get airborne in Canada's Arctic defense. Over the Atlantic, an observer plots an astrofix en route to the Azores. Montreal, Vancouver, Zweibrücken, Gros-Tonkin. Wherever there's a job to be done by the men and planes of the Royal Canadian Air Force.